Every race is built on people, the ones who show up, who believe, who give their time, and who carry others forward. Behind every medal, every finish line, and every breakthrough moment, there's a network of hearts and hands making it possible. In this episode of the RMB Ultra-Trail Cape Town series, we look beyond the trails to the people who make them come alive, the volunteers, the voices, the mentors, and the dreamers. You'll hear from Mike Edwards, Head of Sponsorship at RMB, who sees running as a story of talent and transformation, from Leigh Goldschmidt, the volunteer coordinator whose quiet leadership keeps the race moving, from Lindi Meyer, the founder of Live to Run, whose program changes lives one stride at a time, and from Robson, the man behind the mic at the RMB aid station, the last stop before the finish line, and often the place where courage finds its second wind. Because this race isn't just run on Table Mountain, it's run on the spirit of the people.
Every great race is powered by people, the ones who give their time, their passion, and their belief. For RMB, this partnership has always been about more than banners or branding. It's about co-creation, about standing shoulder to shoulder with those who make this event what it is. Here's Mike Edwards on how the spirit of community drives everything they do. The people really make the race, whether that's the actual people that run the race, or the supporters or the volunteers. And I think that is one of the kind of cornerstones of UTCT is this incredible community of people that's formed around it. How does UTCT fit into kind of your philosophy of, backing the arts, the culture, sport, with a greater consideration for the people?
Yeah, great question. And you mentioned the word community, which is at risk of becoming cliche these days, especially in this sport. But I can guarantee you, and you'll know it if you've run RMB Ultra-Trail Cape Town, you feel it on a very different level at this event. And so that community people aspect of the race is critical. And frankly, it's also a huge part of the success, is because we have and work with like-minded partners together with the race organizers. So the partnership ecosystem that they pulled together is absolutely part of that community. And we have the shared sense of vision and belief and goals that we want to achieve with this event. But taking it a step back to RMB's sponsorship portfolio, you're absolutely right. And it's a golden thread that runs through all of our sponsorship properties. And it's this idea of talent. RMB has long been associated with and driven by talent, both within the business, but broadly speaking, the South African talent that we know we have. And so across, whether you're talking the arts, rowing, trail running, whatever it is in our portfolio, we celebrate that talent. Very often we underestimate the incredible people and the incredible skills we have in this country. And RMB Ultra-Trail Cape Town is a platform to showcase some of that talent on one of the world's greatest trail running stages, against the very best. And we compete, we hold our own against the best of the best in the world. And so our portfolio is built around properties and spaces where we can make a meaningful impact, and the people component of that is absolutely core to our belief and our purpose.
When you say building sort of community through sport, what comes to mind, and how does that all kind of come together for you guys?
For us, it means from the grassroots to the very top. We want to make sure that we are, insofar as possible, supporting the full spectrum of that talent development. And so when it comes specifically to a race like RMB Ultra-Trail Cape Town, you've got people who are starting their journey in trail running, which is why the 16 kilometer was such a great addition to the race series, as well as people who are at the very pinnacle of the sport, running the 100 mile or 100K or running a flat out 55K. And that attracts both domestic and international talent from that perspective. But a layer down from that, and as you well know, we also have an incredible partnership with Live to Run that is about supporting development trail running and giving kids access to this platform that is trail running to potentially make a career of trail running. And the community that's built all around that, which I'm sure we'll touch on just now, is also equally special. Because frankly, you can't do these things without that support. You cannot achieve these goals without a really solid support structure.
What I find like quite fascinating, quite interesting is that you have this really deep relationship with Live to Run, whereas you not only support them through UTCT, but you support them, in your own capacity as well. How did that relationship start? And, why is it so important to RMB?
Yeah, it's again, I find myself pinching myself. I followed and supported Live to Run from a distance prior to even joining RMB. And when I arrived, there was this opportunity and this ongoing conversation around a partnership with Live to Run. And I think for us, I've spoken about impact and transformation before. It's about us as RMB as a brand centered on that pillar of talent is about giving back. And we can do that at scale with Live to Run and Lindi and the team. And again, it seems crazy for me to sit here about Live to Run. I mean, they are the most incredible organization, and Lindi herself has built something that I will forever admire. And I think she's got, as well as her coach athletes, I think they've just got the most incredible hearts. They're incredibly talented. They're incredibly intelligent. And it's a privilege for us to be in partnership with them. And once you give them that platform, and it's a beautiful cyclical model, which Lindi describes so eloquently, is talent becomes coach athlete, talent becomes elite athlete, becomes coach, gives back to talent. And that constantly flows. And there's constantly a generation of young talent that's inspired by the Live to Run athletes. And RMB's partnership is there to support them in whatever way we can.
Do you think it was more a kind of a happy, I don't want to call it accident, but a happy kind of coincidence that, the partnership came about as it did? Why is it so important that there's not only this kind of development happening, but also the opportunity to race in a world-class race like UTCT?
Yeah, so happy accident maybe, but I think you make your own luck. And I think in the case of RMB's sponsorship portfolio, which I've spoken about before, we ensure that our sponsorship properties have a broad spectrum of impact and transformation across the board, from development to the very top, to the event, to the community. We want to get involved in as many facets of the sponsorship property as we can. And so from that perspective, once you've aligned yourself to RMB Ultra-Trail Cape Town, you say, well, where does the talent come from? And how do we ensure that South African talent can get to this platform? And then the obvious answer was Live to Run, because they are leaders in this space. They are leaders in creating opportunities for children and communities to access the sport. And I can't say it enough times. If you give our talent in this country an opportunity to shine, they will. And that's a point of pride of our partnership with Live to Run is making that happen. And then to your second part of your question, for the senior elite athletes at Live to Run, two things: them running RMB Ultra-Trail Cape Town is beyond inspirational to their teams that they coach and to their junior athletes back home. They're seeing them on a pedestal and a spotlight that they can aspire to. They can see their life changing through those athletes' eyes. And from an athletic perspective, those senior athletes are able to put themselves shoulder to shoulder with the best international talent in the world and hold their own against that talent. And that does a number of things for them. It exposes them, it grows them, and ultimately makes them attractive for future careers and future sponsors and future brands. And they're able to, with the right time and investment, they are able to totally accelerate their journey by being able to participate in races such as RMB Ultra-Trail Cape Town.
Let's hear from Lindi, who really kind of, is the power force behind Live to Run and her journey. Every great story has someone who changes lives quietly, one run at a time. Lindi Meyer, the force behind Live to Run, has built a community where running isn't just sport, it's a way to rebuild confidence, purpose, and belonging. This is her story. Lindi, welcome back to the Trail Chasers.
Thank you.
When did your kind of relationship with UTCT kind of start, and how did that kind of connect to Live to Run?
So I was thinking about that actually, that we've been at Ultra-Trail Cape Town a couple of years now. and our first year was actually 2021. And we had just started, James Montgomery, our senior team coach, had just started coaching the senior team. And so we had kind of moved into a more sort of serious space as a team. Obviously, when you pioneer something, things sort of start off quite sort of loose, but then by that stage we had become a team of senior athletes. And so we really wanted to aim at something, a big race in South Africa, a big trail race. And so we identified Ultra-Trail Cape Town as our big goal for the year. So 2021 was our first year at the race.
How did the relationship with RMB come about, and how did that kind of take you to the next level and amplify really what you were building and allowing you to do what you're doing now?
So in our second year at Ultra-Trail Cape Town in 2022, James Montgomery, as I mentioned before, was coaching our senior team, and he was coaching John Cornfield from RMB. And so we decided to meet the RMB marketing team. And so I remember we arranged to meet, I think there's a rugby club sort of pub across the road at the start finish. So I put together a presentation with our vision, what we were aiming for, some objectives. And so we met for the first time with the RMB marketing team at the 2022 event after our race.
Sure. And how's that relationship kind of evolved over the last, 3 years?
Yeah. So I think for me, RMB has just been incredible in that we have found a group of people that really believe that we can transform lives through running. And it's really important when you partner with an organization that you share the same heart. And they've really given wind to our sails to be able to scale up and to really build and increase the impact and increase the amount of people we can bring into the space. And really the heart is to lower the bar to entry for development trail runners, and to give them opportunities that they wouldn't otherwise have. And that's where we share the heart, to be able to unlock talent, to provide access to opportunity, and to transform lives through running.
Yeah. And in the Live to Run community, what is running, for something that's kind of bigger than just yourself? What does that kind of look like? What does that mean to the guys and the girls?
Yeah, it's a very deep question. But I think, the athletes that come through the Live to Run program really are spearheading and running ahead of everyone coming behind them. And that is really to break the limitations, not only in running, but in their personal lives as well. And it's to really sort of use running as a space to break those limitations in their minds, in the athlete's mind, which then transfers into the personal space. So I think, it's just been incredible to watch the athletes that have been in Live to Run the longest really to come and, make top 10 at Ultra-Trail Cape Town. Zielo actually came second at the 23K in 2023. And he's got a whole team of junior athletes that he's coaching, and so they see that.
Sure.
And so it's really being a forerunner, a front runner, a role model. So that's the bigger picture. I
find it really interesting as well that RMB kind of sponsor you, and they sponsor the race as well.
Yes.
And I was thinking about the kind of the synergy, and I guess you could call it closing the loop. And why would you say it's kind of important? You've got an incredible thing you're doing in KZN, and you're teaching people to run and, life skills and as we've discussed in previous interviews. But why is it so important to bring them to races and give them opportunities to come to races like UTCT? And how are RMB and UTCT, how are they facilitating that, beyond obviously financial assistance? Yeah.
So you can imagine you've been to KZN, you know how different it is there. So if someone is growing up in a rural village, in Ndwedwe, for instance, in KZN, that's all you get to see. And when you get to travel, when you get to go to other provinces in South Africa. You know, eventually we're looking at going overseas next year. When you get to travel and go to different spaces, it really facilitates that breaking of limitations off your mind, and it opens up your world. And really so much happens in that space. You know, I think you grow not only as a runner, but you grow as a person, you know, when you're exposed to different spaces, different people, levels of competition. Those are all catalysts for growth. And so RMB's really put that on the table for us. You know, when you pioneer something, financial support and consistent financial support is something that is vital. You know, you can pioneer and kind of wing it up to a stage, but eventually you need to get to a space where financially you're stable, and so that you can have that foundation and then build from there. Yeah.
And are there any kind of particular moments over the last few years at UTCT that kind of stick out as, wow, this is why I do it?
I think there's two spaces. You know, when you see, as a team, we actually spend a lot of time together, so I get to know the athletes really well. And to see that it's almost like a moment where that athlete clicks, that, you know, like, I've done this. You know, when Cielo, for instance, ran down the finishing chute of Ultra-Trail Cape Town in 2022 and came second at the 23 kilometer, they, you know, that moment as they come over the finish line is incredibly special. I think you don't ever get used to it. And then I think just our times as a team, you know, there's the individual celebration, but also the team space, where last year we crewed Sinuvuyo at the 55K. And just as a team, being able to be there for him and encourage him at each of the crew stations and get him over the finish line. There's just a really special space there. Some of our juniors have come into the senior team, just to see them come in under the mentorship of their senior athlete coaches, we call them, and to see them come into, you know, they don't have to sort of fight as hard to get opportunity as, for instance, the others have. So there's a really beautiful sort of full circle space that we're trying to create.
What role do those senior athletes, I guess, play in imparting that knowledge and imparting that kind of experience on the guys coming up?
Massive. I mean, that is, you need an example, right? So if someone says you can go compete at Ultra-Trail Cape Town, you know, it's a theory until you've seen your coach do it. And so that is the power of that mentorship, that role model, that front runner, so to speak. That's something that's actually quite rare on the ground these days, is male role models. Yeah.
And we chatted a little bit about, you know, the supporter kind of angle of it. What do the runners get from the volunteers and the supporters at UTCT, you know, that really kind of helps them and just solidifies that experience?
Yeah, I think, you know, we, Live to Run does host trail running clinics. So we go into the local community, and so that's really where we take trail running to the local community, to Grassroots. And so our senior team athletes, as well as our junior team athletes, actually serve and volunteer at those races. So, I mean, at that clinic. So I think, you know, as you go to other spaces and you see other people serving, it really becomes a mirror. And so the trail running community for me is incredible like that. It really is a beautiful space, and often when we get to races and you know, people will recognize us and greet us, and I think it's just a beautiful space for us as a team, with the trail running community in general.
And, you know, on a personal level, what do you kind of take away from UTCT, from the weekends, from the races? And what is that, you know, you obviously are a runner yourself, but what is the kind of being on the support side? What does that give, you know, to you as opposed to kind of what the running gives to you?
I think just incredible joy. I love to see people kind of go through that journey of training, daring to believe in themselves, and then kind of putting it on the, you know, putting it out there at the race. And so I was actually joking around with Coach James at some point, and he said to me, "Linz, you don't see anyone else on race day." And Because I remember he was actually racing once and running quite close to one of the live-to-run athletes, and I didn't even see him.
Yeah, so solar focused.
So I think I get a bit like a sort of a lion watching her pack when it comes to race day. So yeah, it's just incredible joy. I love it. I love running. I'm passionate about running, not only for myself, but for seeing other people doing what they love. So.
And how do the runners and yourself kind of deal with the hardships or the failures, that kind of inevitably come with doing these races?
There isn't really a blanket solution to that.
Yeah.
I think relationship and trust in a team is very important. We don't only look after the athlete, we also look after the person. And so I really think each athlete knows that. It's not something that they question.
Yeah.
And so if they do badly, often people just need space to process that. And then we move on and look at the next goal. So I think, it depends on the athletes.
Yeah.
Some athletes need to talk, some don't. But we seem to have moved through those type of times quite well.
Yeah.
So,
And on a practical level, how does something like UTCT work in terms of live to run, in terms of who gets selected, which races you kind of take part in, just logistically practical, how does that process work for you?
We're still figuring it out.
Yeah.
But we do have we've developed sort of tiers of athletes. And so even with our sponsorship with Salomon, there's a sort of a senior, sort of a more elite space. So there's 2 athletes there. Then we have sort of a more ambassador space where we have 1 athlete there. And then we have the young guns, we call them, coming up. And so, often you can't always tell when a child is young. So that's why I'm saying we're still trying to kind of figure it out. Yeah. But we do, I err on the side of trying to give someone an opportunity if I can. And so when, for instance, a budget for a race is limited, you'll go from the most senior athlete down, basically.
And who are you bringing? Have you finalized your team for this year?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
Yes, we have. So we've got 8 athletes coming this year, and then myself as the team manager. So we have Sinobuyo and Cielo, who are the senior elite athletes. We've got our first female athlete in the team this year, which is Nolwazi. And then this year we've got 3 matric boys that are also finishing and flying to Cape Town for the first time.
Wow.
Straight after matric to compete in the 16.
Incredible.
So there, again, we're not going to put pressure on them to, get on the podium. They've just written matric. But it's really an exposure event. So we want that event that's going to captivate them and be like, wow, trail running is all of this.
Yeah.
And so that's what Ultra-Trail Cape Town actually has done for us as well.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
As always, so enlightening.
You're welcome.
It's really, really special what you're doing. So thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thinking back to kind of the live to run and the journey that you've been on with them, do you have any kind of moments, that you really just were like, this is exactly why, we sponsor them or we work with them?
Plenty. And it happens again at the elite level, when you watch them and they have numerous podiums and wins to their name, which is just a credit to the journey that they've been on and the foundation that they've been given to grow their talent and to showcase their talent. So from the elite level, absolutely. I think every time we know they're running, if I'm not at the race, I'm on my phone tracking their progress and just crossing fingers and toes that they do well. And more often than not, they don't let you down. They are remarkable. But a couple steps back, and I've been fortunate enough to go to Live Village to one of their trail running clinics, and that's really eye-opening, because you see the scale of the project and you see the impact that it has at scale, but you just see the meaning that it holds for some of these kids. You can see it in their eyes, and a couple of things they're put through the ringer at some of these clinics, which is great, and they're physically exerting themselves beyond where they previously may have, and this is everyone, right? You're talking some naturally talented runners as well as those who wouldn't have identified running as a sport that they want to participate in, but everyone is giving it their full go at these clinics. And in some of the kids, you can literally see the mind shift of, or if I'm able to push myself here, what more can I do with my life? How can I push myself in my life further? And so I think that's an important distinction to make, is they're running, yes, but they're learning life skills, absolutely. And that's a critical component of what Lindy's built. And so, yeah, those are special moments always. And I urge you, if you do ever get an opportunity to visit Live Village or to volunteer at one of the clinics, it's very special.
I think one of the things that stood out for me and stands out for me whenever I chat to Lindi is the personal element of Live to Run. And she often says that it would be quite difficult for Liv to run without her. Talk me through, what about her personally was, I guess, not easy, but so attractive to kind of invest in?
I think she's unbelievably driven, and I think she's got a purpose that is completely unmatched. I think her North Star is her North Star, and nothing's going to get in the way. And to her credit, that's reaped rewards. I think she is also deeply, deeply, deeply invested in her athletes, both the senior elite and the coaches that she works with, all the partners that work with her, as well as every single one of those kids that shows up to a trail running clinic at Live Village. She is so deeply invested in the process, and she's demonstrated that it works. And I've had the privilege of meeting many of the guys along the way, and Cielo and Sinuvuyo Kulakane, Mtubisi, Nolwazi, and each one of them has an inspiring story, and each one of them actively gives a lot of thanks and credit to Lindy. And from the outside in, that's a measure of just how strong she is the people that are close to her acknowledge her as the driving force that she is. And yeah, she's also just, besides all of that, both her and the guys, the senior elites in the team, the guys and girls, are just an absolute pleasure to work with, and they make work incredibly rewarding.
Yeah. And because we are talking about people, and when you kind of look broadly at RMB sponsorship of UTCT, it's very much about people more than it is about the race. So was that kind of also looking at that from a personal point of view, the people that you're actually investing in that kind of run these events? Definitely,
and on two fronts. There's the athletes that take part in the races, who are just regardless of your goal or your time that you achieve or the race distance that you run, these are just incredibly driven people. People with attributes that we as a brand and RMB would like to associate to, in which we identify in ourselves around grit and resilience and commitment and discipline and talent. So that's the one part. More than that, before a single start line goes off, you feel the community. And that's not just attributable to the runners. That's attributable to the people that support the runners, the people that love the sport, and the people that give back to the sport. And for us as a brand, we just, and you yourself and anyone who goes to the race, you feel it the moment you set foot on Gardens Rugby Field and that RMB UTCT race village. It's just, frankly, I don't believe there's another sport out there quite like it that has the sense of community. And I think also, I'll take the opportunity just to say, I think it's a misconception that it's an individual sport only. And I use that word only. It's absolutely, it's your responsibility to get from that start line to the finish line. But frankly, in my own experience and from observation, you cannot get to that finish line without support. Be that the support of the aid station volunteers or support closer to home, be it your mother, your father, your uncle, your friend, whoever it is. Those are the people that sacrifice a lot for you to get to the start line, and then sacrifice even more to get you over the finish line. And that is uncommon in many other sports.
Every great race depends on people you rarely see. The ones behind the numbers, the plans, the calm in the chaos. Leigh Goldschmidt is one of those people. She doesn't chase finish lines, she builds them. And for her, the joy isn't in the spotlight, it's watching thousands cross the line she helped create. Welcome to the Trail Chasers. When I say, UTCT volunteer or volunteer in general, what kind of comes to mind for you?
Well, I automatically think about the wonderful outdoor community of trail running, the passion that is very different out there.
Yeah. And, you know, if you had a business card for the job that you do at UTCT, you know, what would it say underneath your name?
Well, I've often thought about that, but last night I thought ground control to Major Tom.
That's very good. And yeah, I mean, how did you get involved with UTCT?
I was approached, well, originally I heard about it. My husband was involved with Nick and Stu when they were talking about the original event. And a couple of months later, Sue Elliott approached me to come on board and help with setting up registration. And we very quickly set the process up, gathered the volunteers from various avenues. In those days, we didn't use the sign-up form.
Yeah.
It used to be very much word of mouth, and we'd get emails. And then within a couple of years, we created a smarter system where we have the online sign-up, which works very well.
Yeah. And, you know, in terms of the volunteers at UTCT, what are the kind of roles that people kind of get assigned to?
All right, well, we start off with Tuesday and Wednesday where we call that the pre-event. All the medals have to have ribbons attached to them. We have goodie bags to be packed. We have accreditation to be assembled. We have registration tables to set up, so that pretty much takes 2 days. And thereafter, we have our standard registration on Thursday and Friday, which includes the startup of gear check, registration tables, counters for each distance. We have the T-shirt area, and then we have, on Friday, whilst all of that is happening, we have 2 races up and running. So part of our team will be down at Cape Town High from 2:30, dispatching runners off to Alphen and to Llandudno. At the same time, we'll have a team up at Race Village where we are receiving drop bags or tog bags. We then have another team working on the medals, so they're already preparing the finish line with medals. Sure. So we have quite a lot of hours before people actually arrive at the Race Village where our teams have been working. And that continues throughout the weekend with more and more and more.
Yeah. And, you know, what makes the experience so kind of special for the volunteers?
I think the characters and personalities of the trail runners are very different. They're very polite, very grateful. At the end, seeing them come over the finish line where we've met them at registration makes a massive difference. We sort of travel the journey with them. Yeah. But we're still at Race Village.
I think a lot of people, I guess, have run the race or have supported the race, you know, but from your perspective, how does the weekend, you know, kind of feel? And, you know, is it kind of a blur?
Well, it's probably like a hamster on a wheel.
Yeah.
We just keep going. It's high energy, very frenetic, positive vibes. There are a lot of fires we put out along the way. Very few people see those. And that's at the Race Village, so not in the mountains, fortunately. Yeah. But it's positive energy throughout, and we have to think on our feet because there are a lot of changes required that we hadn't planned for.
Yeah. And how has the kind of race, in terms of volunteers, how has that kind of evolved over the last 10 years?
So traditionally with an event, every year when we have a debrief, we take our notes, and when we start off planning, we try to aim to be smarter and swifter. So for example, this year the change we're making is whilst the organisers very often would like us to have a very laid-back, relaxed sort of atmosphere, we know that people don't want to spend a lot of time in a queue.
Yes.
So gear check has become quite an onerous aspect of it, and we're trying to take away that long, slower process. The emphasis is going to be on the waterproof jackets and also the appropriate gear for the hundreds.
Yeah.
We'll focus a lot more on that.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure you've had a lot of moments over the last 9 years, but are there any particular highlights that really just stand out in your mind?
Yeah, I think for me there was a highlight about half an hour before registration closed last year. There was a man who arrived looking terribly anxious, and he had come from Sweden, I think it was, and he had flown in and he was doing the 100-miler.
Sure.
And his luggage hadn't come with him.
Sure.
And unfortunately he had everything in his main luggage. And I realized that this was Stu wasn't around, a couple of people weren't around, and I had to think on my feet. So I started with everybody we knew, and I said, don't worry, we'll help you. He was very emotional.
Yeah.
And we talked to various runners who could lend items, but concerned that we wouldn't be able to provide him with the right shoes and all of that sort of thing. So I spoke to Heather of RMB and to Adidas, and between the two of them, within probably 45 minutes, he had his full gear sponsored by RMB and Adidas, and he walked out with absolutely every item from A to Z, shoes, buffs, jackets, waterproof kit.
Yeah.
And it was quite an emotional goosebump.
Jeez.
He was in tears, we were all in tears, and he said he'll be back. And by the way, on the during the course, he shared the story with many people, and he reckons it wouldn't have happened in any other country. So
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, I know, it
Although
was-
it might encourage people to forget their bags and
and run in the
future.
wonderful gear.
Yeah, exactly. And did you see him when he came across the finish line?
Very much so. We were there, in fact, supporting his wife during the wait for him,
Yeah,
and it was another emotional moment.
yeah.
But it was really great.
And what is the interaction like, I guess, with the locals, who obviously a lot of the volunteers know, versus kind of the foreign people who are coming here for the first time?
Quite a lot of top trail runners work on our event, and the interaction is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's always positive and helpful. We often find volunteers drifting off, taking somebody to a particular area, especially if there's a language barrier.
Yeah. And what has been the most challenging thing that you've had to deal with?
Well, I don't think we haven't had any negative situation. I think the challenge comes in something like where a drop bag obviously is sitting in Hout Bay and or another area, and a runner bails and he comes to the finish and he wants his bag. So obviously we can't help with that.
Yeah.
But I don't see that as a big challenge, because invariably we'll offer him a coffee and something to eat. So we've actually turned that around, and we've encouraged every 100-mile and 100K person to bring a tog bag as well, so that if for any reason their drop bag at the two destinations hasn't come back in time, that they can actually, have a shower or change, etc. So we try to overcome every obstacle.
Yeah.
But nothing else really at the village. I think we just overcome the obstacle as it happens, and we forget it by the time of the weekend.
And are there kind of moments every year that you kind of look forward to, or, are kind of standouts for you?
Yeah, I think for me, although it's absolutely wonderful seeing the winners, for me it's getting to know a lot of the families who are sitting on the sideline, and their runners have come in quite a lot slower than anticipated, and the cut-offs are coming, and they've travelled from far, and the emotions are huge.
Yeah. And, obviously speaking to volunteers and people on your team, what is it that they get out personally, that they kind of say around why they get involved in UTCT?
I think they all just say it's so worth it. It's sort of a common comment. It's just so worth it. Seeing people finish the event, the months and months of training that's put in, and they share the stories, because very often at registration, people will be sharing their stories and asking a lot of questions. It's my first time, what do I do? And invariably we'll point them to an appropriate person to have a little more insight from.
Yeah. And what does it feel like when you see people kind of crossing the finish line? Maybe you've seen them, during the week and stuff like that. What is that kind of feeling like?
It's very emotional. I mean, there are a hell of a lot of us who are very tearful. I think also it's bigger for us because we're tired. We've been going at it since Tuesday. It took us about 7 years to learn, particularly when the 100-miler came in, that we actually have to go and sleep, even if it's for 3 or 4 hours. The four of us, somewhere between, because we start on 2:30 on Saturday morning and we can't go right through to Sunday.
Yeah.
So we are tired, and when you see them come over the line, it's very emotional.
Yeah.
Lots of tears of joy.
I think a lot of people think, that this race kind of starts, in November, people start preparing in October, or, so when does the actual race start for you for the next year in terms of preparation? And and that kind of process?
Okay, so I can probably just backtrack for this year around about May, June, July, I think it was. We had already identified changes that we would make following on our debriefs. And then we are creating the roster slots, time slots. You know, very often you think people start at 7 and they finish at 9. We have people who start at 2:30 in the morning at Alphen and at Llandudno or at the buses and finish there at 5 or 6 or 7, but then they continue on to Race Village. So we have about 6 different time slots during the day, and we've improved on that. So I've been working on that for the last couple of months.
Yeah, and I mean, going into that, you know, how important is that to making the race kind of successful, in your opinion?
Very important.
Yeah.
Very, very important, because, you know, we say to the volunteers, if you can't explain to someone how to get to Alphen Trail, where they're going to park, there's limited parking, don't just direct them to the following people. There are 5 of us. It's a lot easier that way. So we actually have become quite creative now. We have little laminated notes that we keep at each registration desk. These are the bus times. Sure. Don't park. There is no parking at Constantia Neck for the start at Bo Constantia. So we give them a lot of information, and it makes a difference. And we've had a lot of positive feedback. Our volunteers all have a name tag, and I'm very often complimented on the final day, just to say, you know, Michael was great, Julie was great, etc. They told us where to go and how to do it. And particularly in emergency cases where families are waiting and they're worried and they're concerned, we have to remain calm. So we've got someone who's working on the finish line who isn't necessarily experienced with this. They would direct it to us. We would speak to the VOC or the jock and identify where the runner is if we can, and talk to aid station people, etc., etc.
And, you know, does that make the having, you know, obviously the vouchers as a reward, but actually having the volunteers run the race, you know, and then maybe coming back to volunteer, you know, is that kind of a useful insight, and does that change the way that they volunteer?
Oh, very, very much so.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people who have done it either way, either run or volunteered first, have a totally different perspective. You know, you just get a medal. When you cross the finish line, you get a medal. You haven't given any thought to who put the ribbon on the medal and who hung them and who carried them and who made sure they were there, and what it takes to pack T-shirts and sort them and count them. So definitely we have Nicholas Rapanga. I always say he's my finish line king. People love it, and he loves it because he knows what goes into the race.
Yeah. And, you know, if you could give one word to describe a UTCT volunteer, what would that be?
Lots of words come to mind, but I just think committed. It's a different commitment.
Yeah.
I haven't really seen it, and I've worked on lots of events, trail and road, but it's a different commitment.
Yeah. And, you know, if someone's kind of on the fence about signing up for UTCT as a volunteer, you know, what do you say to them?
Try it 1 year.
Yeah.
Just try it 1 year and you'll be back.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Okay. Thank you very much.
It's getting to crunch time now.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll see you on the weekend. What does that feel like as a runner to have that kind of support from the race itself, from the volunteers, but also from the spectators and, you know, from family and friends?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. But the sport doesn't exist without that community. And that community comes in a number of forms. It comes in close and immediate family members who are there to support you and have sacrificed on your trail running journey. But when you're there, you just feel like everyone's on your side. And that's remarkable. The uniqueness of trail running and RMB Ultra-Trail Cape Town specifically is the front of the race is just as interesting as the back of the race. And you're invested in the elites and who's going to win and is there a record time on course. But you also become deeply invested in the people, everyday human beings who have 8 to 5 jobs, who are giving absolutely everything they have out on that course and out on that trail. And the community is what makes all those success stories happen. Random passerbys on the street, people around the race village, your immediate community. But I think especially, and again, a unique aspect of trail running, this idea of aid stations. So on a 160 kilometer course, and I forget the exact amount, but give or take 12 aid stations. And every single one of those is a satellite of hope. Because for the longer distances, for example, you're running through the night, sometimes 2 night, when you're talking about the back of the pack for the 100 milers. And it is lonely out there. It can be incredibly lonely. It can be daunting. It can be scary. But knowing that you have these aid stations and a trail running community to welcome you into those aid stations with open arms is just very, very special and very reassuring, because I think it can feel incredibly isolating as a sport, but you also know you are never ever alone. And so just everything about it and all the people that give so much to the sport, be it volunteers or partners and family members that support the runners, is just very unique, very rewarding, and a very proud aspect of the race that RMB's proud to be associated with.
One of those people that, really knows exactly what goes into all of this is Sean Robson, who, spends a lot of time giving back to the community, spends a lot of time at races. And, his big job, I guess, for the UTCT weekend is at the UCT aid station, which is the last aid station of the race. So I spoke to him about his experiences, and we're going to hear from him now. If runners are the heartbeat of the race, the aid stations are its lungs, the places where people breathe, regroup, and keep going. At the very last one, just 10 kilometers from the finish, there's a familiar voice that every runner knows. Sean Robson is the MC at the RMB aid station, a man whose words have lifted hundreds of tired legs back to life. Sean, welcome to the Trail Chasers. Welcome to this special edition UTCT episode with RMB. I want to kind of start off with, you can kind of say what your job title is at UTCT, if they kind of actually assign that.
Yeah.
But what do you kind of see as your official or unofficial role at UTCT?
Sure. I suppose job title MC, but I think I was pondering this. I suppose I think about it every time I go to an event, but I think especially at UTCT, UCT, that aid station, I think my job is predominantly to create risk of being cheesy, it's sort of an oasis.
Yeah.
Whatever distance you've run, you've got 10 more Ks to go. Mostly you're pretty much smashed. You're exhausted. You look up and you've got to go up to the blockhouse, up towards Devils. My job is to make that as welcoming and as comforting a place as possible for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And for someone who's never experienced that, take us a little bit through what that space kind of sounds and feels like, and I guess also the kind of different patterns throughout the weekend.
Well, it's an interesting space. The space is quite vibey, to use a Cape Town term, at various points of the event. Otherwise, it can be quite a solitary place.
Yeah.
If you're rolling at 3 a.m. and you're a 100K athlete or a 100 miler, it's a pretty dark and quiet spot to gather your thoughts and figure out if you're going to continue to go. During the day or big parts of the night, 11, 12 o'clock, when you've got big masses coming through, it's a bit of a party. That beautiful RMB arch, the lights show that gets going. It's a heck of a thing, and you've got all the people coming up. I'm always astounded by not just the friends and family come to watch, but I'll talk to spectators and they say, "Oh no, I ran this morning. I've decided to come through. I wouldn't want to support people the way I was supported."
Yeah.
I always find that quite a cool thing.
Yeah. And how do you put yourself in the kind of runner's position, and also how do you kind of assess, what a runner kind of needs when they kind of run past you?
I've done the 35 back in the day.
Yeah.
And it was a hard day for me. And when I got to that aid station, I needed something, and unfortunately I got it. Someone sorted me out with a handful of chips and filled my water bottles. And I think I try to still create that same sort of experience, a one-on-one moment. I think that it's a bit of a, not a guessing game, but you've got to kind of feel each runner.
Yeah.
I think trying to see if they need the hand on the shoulder or the hug, or sometimes they just need to get out of here. Everyone's different.
Yeah. And how do you did mention a little bit, but how do you kind of experience that, supporter's point of view, and how is that kind of different to what the runners are kind of experiencing in the same place?
Well, if you watch, I watch faces a lot. And if you watch the supporters' faces, you can often see when people are glancing at that watch going, "Oh, but Dean said he'd be at 12. It's now 1 o'clock," and the nerves start setting in is he okay? Isn't he okay? My job in that time is to sort of be reassuring, to explain to them maybe things haven't gone the way that their runner wanted, but we've got people out on the course. We're going to get them there. There's just a whole host of things. So I think the spectators are quite an interesting part of it. I mean, it's not just about the runner. If you've done any sort of running, you know that it takes, again, to use one of those pithy sayings, it takes a village. But it does take the spouse, the partner, the mom and the dad, when you roll in, to be there for you. And they've sacrificed just as much, arguably, as the runners have to be there on the day.
That's incredible. And, what would you say that you kind of see that most, people would never kind of experience? What makes it unique for you that runners or supporters kind of don't actually get to experience?
I think I see that moment where you think to yourself, when the runner thinks to themselves, I don't have to do this anymore. I'm done. Like I'm out. And then the next moment where they sort of take that moment to go, you know what, I'll just put another foot in front of the other and we'll see. We'll climb out this horrific climb of plum pudding to the blockhouse. And those are the moments that I feel very privileged to be a part of, even if they don't quite realize I'm there, which is also part of the game in some ways. I don't want to ever be bigger than this aid station. I am a very small part of that. So just putting a hand on someone's shoulder and saying, I see you and I believe in you.
And what do those moments kind of teach you about people, I guess, about the runners, but then also about the supporters and volunteers?
That we can do more than we realize we're capable of. I think across the board, you can give another 10 minutes. You can give another 15 minutes of clapping for the runners who come through that aren't your runners. It's always remarkable to me the amount of people who come to, as I said, to see their runner come through, and then they'll stay to support a few more. Or they'll put their arm around someone. Oftentimes you'll have a runner come in who doesn't have fans or spectators, so to speak, but someone from outside will shout their name. It's one of those wonderful things about having the bib, right, with your name on and your flag. And if you don't know how to speak the person's language, they always seem to find something to say, and I think that's really cool.
And you did touch on it a little bit, but that transformation, as you said, when a person kind of comes in and they're broken and deflated, and then they kind of go through the station and they leave the other side, picked up, ready to go. What is that experience like for you?
That's moving every time. I mean, I get to see the very best of people, right? In a world that we're constantly exposed apparently to all the worst, I get to see the very best of people at their very lowest of moments. And I often say to runners, I try to have a little moment with them, say, you're going to do this, you're about to do this remarkable thing. And then you're going to go out into the world, and the world's going to tell you that this is about you, and this, and this. But you did this remarkable thing that you can now carry forward with you. And I think that's everything in some ways.
And what keeps you kind of coming back to this role every year?
Geez, the people. Those moments, those moments watching a family hug their runner and just sort of everyone gets down really quiet and low, or watching a child. I mean, I'm always very moved by the moms and dads who run through there with their kids on their shoulders or holding hands, and even though they're, as you say, exhausted and deflated, they find a moment and they inspire in their children, right? And I think that's very cool. The people keep me enthused. I mean, I often say, I would do this as long as they have me, until the day that someone just wanders over and takes the mic out of my hand. You'll find me at UCT, and then I'll come back and be a spectator.
And you're obviously this is not your only kind of gig in the year, so you're quite familiar with the community. What difference does that make in your role and in the job that you're doing?
I mean, it's rad, right? Too, because the community becomes your friends. I love cheering all of the people through, but it is really cool to see someone from Tuesday Trails or a Stelly Shakeout or wherever you're running, and to be able to see, he's been putting the work in. I've seen him put the work in. I've seen her doing those hill repeats when no one else was watching on a Tuesday, and now you get to have that moment with your friend, and that's mean, that's gold.
Yeah. And what are the kind of, I guess, the basic rules that you kind of, talk yourself through in terms of, like greeting people and, even when you don't know them, do you kind of have that conversation with yourself in terms of like, this is what we're going to do, this is how it's going to be done, just reminding yourself about that?
I try to remember that this is not about me.
Yeah.
I'm just a vehicle. I'm just a very fortunate vehicle for the event. I try to runners don't always want to be shouted at, right, or shouted for. So I work very hard at making eye contact with everyone who comes through, even if it's just letting them know I am there and I've seen them, and then sort of trying to feel where they are in that moment. Maybe they need a high five or a handshake, or as they say, I think I've become relatively well known for hugging people, and that's also okay. But sometimes mostly dudes, just want you to nod at them, and off they'll go.
Yeah.
So yeah, just keeping in mind that this is not your moment.
Yeah.
It's their moment.
You can see that you're clearly passionate about it, but do you get that sense from everyone that's kind of in that aid station, that it's a lot more than what it seems on the outside that it is?
Very definitely. I think they have a wonderful volunteer crew there that have been there year on year, and they bring new volunteers every year. And through my other life, I'll meet parents of some of the children I teach, and I'll say, "Oh, and it's oftentimes their first time," and I will see them at school a week later, and they say to me, "I'm there next year.
Yeah.
I can't wait to do it again. You said it was going to be great, but you didn't say it was going to be this great." And so I think that is so cool. Like that, you get the repeaters who've been doing the 7, 8, 9 years. I mean, you'll see. I imagine to the lead up into the event, sort of we'll start to look at some of those hardcore volunteers, but it's very difficult to keep yourself away once you've experienced it once.
Yeah. And we did chat a little bit about the kind of how you kind of progress through the weekend, but what is the kind of different feeling that you get from, say, the elites versus the kind of back of packers, and I guess also different races as well?
I don't think the elites need me, quote unquote, as much as a dude who's just done 7.5 hours for 45 Ks, because I know what that's like.
Yeah.
I've been in that cave. I know what it's like to be thinking, geez, where's the cutoff? Is the cutoff coming? Where are the sweepers? Are the sweepers close? What's going on? The elites, rad to see them like it, and also because I have some relationships there, it's rad to see people doing well and having a go. And I try to give them a nod, often have a high five, that sort of thing, even a joke, because at that point they're also still able to breathe.
Yeah.
When we start moving through the pack, it changes. What they require from the station changes. As we move through, it changes. The pit crews become a little longer. It's a granny and an auntie who've been able to take Friday off. And as you say, the distances change things as well, right? On a Friday with your 55 or your shorter events, guys are charging through. It's a constant. It's a race.
Yeah.
And even your mid packers are quite speedy. Even your backpackers. As we get to the longer distances, or on the Sunday when we have the shorter distances where people are trying trail running for the first time, it starts to change what people require.
Yeah.
The weather plays a huge role in that. Last year the Sunday was incredibly hot. I think you can attest to that.
Yeah.
It was very warm.
Yeah.
Guys need ice. They need water. They need to be sent into the shade. They don't need you to be cheering every moment of theirs on. More of a bit of but it is a bigger party vibe because we're celebrating almost the entire weekend, right? The unicorns come out, everyone's favorite thing. The DJ's making great music. DJ Phil is rocking on those decks. It's every moment, every day is different, every night is different, and this year will be different as well, which also keeps you coming back, right? You never know what incredible thing you're about to see.
Yeah. And you did mention a bit about the cutoffs, and the sweepers, and talk to me a little bit about those moments, and obviously what the kind of the people in those moments kind of need or don't need.
It's hard to watch, eh? It's, if you grew up in South Africa, you've watched the comrades cut off, and that's heartbreaking. But knowing that there are cutoffs at the station, you yourself start watching the watch. You're thinking, I haven't seen so and so come through yet. My mate, I know he's training really hard. He's not here yet. And you see people coming through, just cutting it off. You wonder where the sweeps are. Sometimes you get lucky and most people are through. The sweeps get people through. Sweepers are incredible humans. to offer that much time up. And again, I've known the sweeps for years. It's the same people year on year.
Yeah.
They grow up from 14 years old. We've got Ruben, who's now an 18-year-old, who's grown to love trail running and grown to love sweeping. It's rad.
Yeah. And what do you think that this whole process or this whole race, this aid station, what does that say about, I guess, the human spirit individually, but also kind of as a collective?
It says the best things, right? Like, as you say, like individually it says people are brave, people are courageous. But as a collective, it says that people want the best for other people.
Yeah.
Right? Like they want to see you get through the aid station. A friend of mine always jokes that if you run a long race, you shouldn't phone your mom at any point in the race, because your mom's always going to say, "Oh, my boy, you're amazing. You just stop the race. Just don't hurt yourself anymore. Amazing." But at aid stations, people will tell you that, but then they also tell you, get your ass up and go. Go. Like, if you can just get through the next kilometer, you can get through the next 9. And I think that's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah. And if you could kind of sum it up in a moment that you've kind of experienced, or a word, what would that be?
Oof. I was thinking about this. I'm not sure there are single moments. There's just too many of them. I've had too many incredible moments over the last 8 or 9 years at that station where I've just been able to witness things. There's this idea that I try not to talk as much. I think MCs don't always have to fill the space with sound. I think it's almost, as you get more experience in it, you learn that. And there are times when I just sit down and just have a little quiet cry to myself, and in the happiest of ways, watching people do incredible things. And I'm hopeful that this year, and I know it'll happen, I'm going to end up sitting somewhere and crying again, because they're all there.
Yeah. And if you were saying to someone, or telling someone, why they should enter the race, I guess, as a runner, but then also enter the race as a volunteer, what would those kind of messages be?
Because it'll change you. You will get to meet the coolest, bravest, most courageous of people. You'll get to help those people. And for yes, you get the burger and you get the t-shirt and you might get a discounted entry down the line. But I've never met anyone who said to me, "Oh, wow, that's why I'm doing this." They do it because what they get back in terms of emotion and experience is just incredible. And I think as a runner and as a volunteer, I couldn't encourage you more to get involved. I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I want them to come and watch every moment of it, because you can't help but be changed.
Yeah. And what is the moment like after everything's kind of done? Last runners have come through, events finished. What is that kind of decompression feeling? Depression, I guess, or...
Yeah, it's a little bit like that. I will finish at UCT, and then I will race through to the finish, and then I do golden hour.
Yeah.
And then I do literally the last of the runners through. And then I'm almost bereft because there's no more. And I'll oftentimes, we have UTCT is renowned for its after party and its celebration, and I'll try and attend, but oftentimes I'll just sit there and be quiet for an hour and a half, and people think that something has gone wrong, that there's been a glitch in my brain, as the kids at my school would say. But really, it's just because there's nothing more. Like, it's been almost perfect, and there's nothing more to say or do in that moment.
Yeah. And you mentioned now about the golden hour. I just want to touch on that quickly. What is, I guess, for people who've never experienced it, what is the magic of that? First of all, what is it? And second of all, what is the magic of that moment?
So golden hour is the last hour before all the races are cut off, right? That's with on the Sunday, whether it's a short course race or the 100 milers, this is it. It's if you end up at the bottom of the field at Gardens Tech Rugby Club and the flares are lit, it's over for you. You've missed out. You've done 150, 60 points something, and you don't finish. You're a DNF, unfortunately. And that brings jeopardy. I think, we live in a world oftentimes where there's no consequence to things, but there's jeopardy in running, right? and I both know what it's like to be chasing cutoffs. We know that if we don't get there, no one's giving us a medal at the end. You get a high five, but and you have to live with that for another year. And it's incredible to watch the people line up and wait and cheer for people coming around that corner. And you get to see humans that don't look like they should be able to run 160 kilometers. They may have looked like athletes at the start, but they're shambling messes at the end. And you get to bring that home and watch a husband fall into his wife's arms, or a wife fall into her husband's arms, friends surround. If you're Robbie Rorick type, you've got 20 friends cheering you at the end. But those moments, I mean, they're incredible, right? And with the flares and with the music, it's a place you want to be on the Sunday.
Incredible. I've got goosebumps just listening to that. So thank you very much.
No worries.
This is amazing. And thank you for everything you do for the community.
Oh, no.
And I'm looking very forward to seeing you at UTCT this year. I'll probably also be there in a volunteer capacity. So
Please
come and
through,
join
guys.
you.
No worries. Cheers, Dean. Thanks,
Amazing.
man.
Thank you. One of the things that Sean really touches on, and you mentioned it a bit earlier, is the power of the back of the pack, in those stories of those people that are right at the back, that need all the hope and all the kind of push that they can to make that finish line. When you stand at an aid station, like UCT, and you see those individuals, what feeling do you get?
Yeah, and Sean's is certainly a voice that's become synonymous with RMB Ultra-Trail Cape Town, synonymous with trail running more generally, but specifically synonymous with RMB's aid station. And his voice and seeing this both from behind the curtain as well as in front of the curtain running the race is a very reassuring voice. I think he gives a lot of hope to athletes coming through our aid station. He's very encouraging. He knows so much of the community, and that's a big power of Sean's. Is he's calling most people in by their first name. He knows what they do. He knows where they come from. He knows the ringer that they've been put through and the training that they've gone through to get to this point. And so, as a person, as a symbol of our RMB aid station, and everyone's very familiar with our light tunnel, you come into that space, and regardless of how you're feeling upon arrival, you're going to feel a very different person when you leave. And that's attributable to the investment and time that we've put into that aid station to make it that space, but also to his credit, Sean, who just can take people up off the ground, lift them up, and get them out of there as quickly as possible in the best way as possible. And that aid station specifically, you've got 10 kilometers to go. Every single race except the 16K goes through there, and it's your final stretch.
When you look at the race, what does that tell you about the power of community, about the power of connection, and ultimately about the power of people and the way that they kind of respond to the race and to the people in the race?
Yeah, people get you through this race. Whether it's 16 kilometers or 100 miles, they are the fuel that gets you from A to B. It's a race that's very often run aid station to aid station because it can be so daunting to look at it in its entirety. And regardless of how you're feeling or what kind of headspace you're in, your goal is only ever to get to the next aid station. And that, the community is going to be there to welcome you in and send you on your way to the next one. And so it's incredibly special to be in such a vast stadium that is the Cape Town Trail Network, but to feel so connected to the community. And we also, every year as part of our partnership, we've produced numerous trail cowbells, which are synonymous with the sport. And it's become a noise that can lift you out of the darkest hole. And across the breadth of those 167 kilometers, you've got people with trail bells and signs and just wishing you well, whether they know you or not. And I think that's very special. It's a showcase of the best of humanity has to offer.
When the focus is beyond the profits and the money, and in this case, the goal, I guess, is building community and the power of people, how does that change RMB's mindset in terms of the sponsorship?
You've touched on an important point there. Is broadly speaking, and over a longer term, what we're doing here is building our brand. And we're building a brand against a sport that shares so much of our culture, shares so much of our values. And so there's a lot of power in that. The more people involved, the better, quite frankly. It's a sport that's rapidly growing. And I think the other uniqueness of RMB Ultra-Trail Cape Town specifically, but also more broadly trail running and running in general, is it's unique in that it's both a very strong participatory sport, but also a audience viewership sport. Whether you like trail running or not, you can watch it on the broadcast and be hooked. And if you are a trail runner, you can be part of that hook. You can be on the same start line as the greatest athletes in the world in that sport. And that's unique to running. And so, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but RMB's involvement is to your point, it's so much more than just the reach and awareness and money and all those things. It's about building our brand and supporting a sport and supporting an event that we can co-create together in partnership. It's very difficult to finish this race and not want to come back. I should have started. It's very difficult to finish this race, granted, depending on where you're at in your capability. But it's very difficult to finish, let it simmer, and not be Googling the race entry opening times for 2026. You kind of want to bottle that feeling for as long as possible, because you get there and the community is so inspiring, and it's a very it's a celebration of everything good about South Africa and its people. And you want to bottle that feeling and hold on to it for as long as you can, and also carry it into your daily life and into your work. And I think, importantly, what we also hope that a lot of people walk away with, and certainly from a volunteer perspective, I know Stuart and team also hope the same, is you finish this race and you feel the sense of wanting to give back. And even if you don't race the following year, you're there as a volunteer, or you're putting your hand up to say, can I sweep? Can I pace? Where can I support? Can I go to an aid station? Because I've been both sides of the fence, racing and supporting. And if it's someone close to you, or even if it's not someone close to you, if it's someone in the community, or just broadly speaking the community, it can very well be just as rewarding to support as it is to race. You feel a sense of joint accomplishment when the people you're supporting are achieving their big, lofty, ambitious goals.
In the end, it always comes back to the people. The ones who cheer in the rain, who hand out water in the dark, who keep the lights on the last aid station. RMB Ultra-Trail Cape Town isn't built on finish times. It's built on connection between runners and volunteers, sponsors and storytellers, strangers who become teammates. Because when people come together for something bigger than themselves, a race becomes a movement. And that's what makes this community so powerful. Next time we'll bring it all together, the mountain, the people, and the miles, as we step into episode 3, the race.